Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here every week to break down all the things that are happening in pop culture and interviewing the people that make it pop. Today, we're talking all about Peacock's hot new dating show that makes you see three. It's Couple to Throuple, where sexy singles join an island full of sexy couples to find out who wants to throuple up. The entire season is already streaming, so I highly recommend getting your eyes on it because today we're going to be talking all about it with one of the island's most sought after singles. Please welcome to The Gist, Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
Of course. So I'm so excited to talk to you about this because my friends have, obviously we do this pop culture podcast and so I get these recommendations and people are like, you have to see Couple to Throuple. And specifically they were like, Jonathan and the guys, you're going to just think that this is the most entertaining piece of television that you've seen in a while. And they were right. So I want to hear a little bit about how did you find the show? How did you get involved in the show? Why'd you decide to do it?
Yeah, so I was reached out on Instagram originally months in advance about the show. And then originally I was like, okay, this is has to be a scam or something fake. So I just ignored it. And then they reached out a few times. There was multiple people from multiple Instagrams. I'm assuming it's different producers or
right.
Production just reaching out. And then next thing you know, I was like, okay, let me just do an interview and see what this is about. And then I did the interview and they were like, hey, we want to know your experience and polyamory or being open. And I was like, honestly, I don't even know what polyamory is. So then I was told what polyamory was, but they did like the fact that I had a threesome before and I'm very open-minded.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of maybe wanted them to okay, well, this is someone who's different. Maybe he doesn't know what polyamory is or what polyamory could be, but the fact that he's open-minded and he hasn't been in a threesome before, that's already I guess a green flag for them. So then I actually didn't get casted till 2 weeks prior to filming. So I did an interview with them months in advance. I was originally told 2 weeks prior that I would be considered a standby cast member. So basically, I guess if someone gets sick or whatever it is, anything can happen, right? They can switch things last minute with couples and whatnot. And I think that's why I don't know, it's just, they were like, okay, let's just put him on episode 1. And I guess it kind of worked out, honestly, but I didn't think I was actually going to start filming. And they were like, if you come to Panama, you're still going to be on standby. So we just want to give you a heads up in case you're here and kind of potentially maybe be what the singles were experiencing, where they just didn't really get chosen or I guess get selected to but so I was really just waiting for I was just enjoying the ride and seeing let's just see what happens. And the next thing you know, they're like, no, we're gonna put you in episode 1. And I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah. And then from episode 1 you were part of the story immediately.
I know, crazy. And I was honestly shook.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I think it was interesting because when everyone meets at the beginning, you can tell that there's a lot of nerves. I'm sure that interaction, especially, on things like Love Island, everybody's single. And so everybody's there sort of in the same space, but you're actually coming into this situation with couples who are already together. So that's got to feel intimidating a little bit to meet them in that.
Oh, for sure.
Tell me a little bit about, were you drawn to any of the couples instantly? Obviously, we'll get into kind of where you landed, but were you drawn somewhere, or were you just I'm just going to meet everyone here?
I think originally I went in there okay, I'm going to just go with I guess based on just looks, right? And if we would have just went based on looks, I think the couple that I was very attracted to and drawn to were Corey and Walter. They just stood out to me. They were hot and they were so bubbly, and it was just my ex is Italian, so I feel it was just that's just kind of what I'm drawn to originally. And then once I actually met Ramon and Oshawa and I spoke to them, I was like, okay, well, this would be interesting. You can tell that I can tell that they kind of were drawn to me, or that they liked me. They wanted to get to know me. Whereas in Corey and Walter, I already knew that they had a different type of interaction with Denise, and I could already see them becoming a throuple. So I was okay. Well, I'm not here to compete and start getting messy. I just want to see. I want to give the actual boys a shot, and I think it actually worked out. And in some sense, I mean, you didn't see that in the first few weeks, but eventually it did work out. And yeah, it was very nerve wracking. Like even just being there, like when the singles came out and we saw the couples, I was like, wow, like we're actually being filmed. And then you see the cameras and everything. I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is my first time doing obviously a reality TV show, so I'm like, I didn't know what to expect, but I was ready for it all. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and you obviously you end up with Ashmal and Rahman, and it. They picked you for that first night or the first kind of like coupling up. But tell
right,
me, like, was on the singles side, were you guys feeling, sort of competitive with one another to be
yeah.
picked, or how was that sort of dynamic?
Yeah. So honestly, like I know I just mentioned earlier that I wasn't trying to like be messy and be competing with everyone, but I am such a competitive person. So like when I was with the singles in like the waiting room and like we were about to come out for the first layer swap,
Yeah.
me, Junior, and Frank, even Chris, we're already like just like kind of like joking around saying, oh, like it's gonna be I was the only one I think saying it's going to be you guys because I was not confident about getting chosen. So even though I am competitive and I would have loved to get, to like say, hey, I'm going to get chosen, I wasn't feeling that way because I did see them have more of an interaction with the other singles than myself. So
Yeah.
we had, they did show in episode one that like one scene of me, Jess, talking to the boys. But even then, I was like, do the boys want Jess? Because it's not that I'm like, I'm not a confident person, but just the interaction after that, it was more. I just felt like maybe like I don't know if production wanted them to choose Jess first, or maybe they wanted us to choose Frank, but it just seemed that way. It seemed like they had more of those conversations than myself and the boys.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, even like they didn't show when we had like a little like night drink and like everyone was talking. I didn't really get a chance to speak one on one with the boys. So then we
Mhm.
went into the first layer swap, and that's what I was telling Junior, Frank, and Chris. No, it's gonna be you guys. Like you guys literally had a full conversation. Chris's thing was showing and like they were all like I'm like
Mhm.
you guys probably have a better shot together. And then I was very surprised that I got chosen, but I was super happy because I'm like, well, told you guys but
Yeah.
didn't tell you guys. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
you mentioned like seeing the cameras, and so you get picked, and
Yeah,
things got physical very quickly. Things got
right.
steamy and
I
heated
know.
up right away. Were you aware of the cameras in those moments, and like how it was, or were you just like at that point had you kind of just let the guard down of like being on reality TV and were there for the sort of thruple experience?
Right. So when I got chosen and I walked into like the room and we were all like having a conversation. This is obviously prior to us getting in bed and like
Yeah.
doing whatever. I was like, okay, well, I can see the cameras, but I think I guess like I wanted to just go into this experience without like putting my guard up like 24/7 and
Yep.
without like I wanted to really just be open-minded and like wear my heart in my sleeves, and I think I kind of did that. And I think that's why when we were in bed and like everything gets dark, you kind of see like I think like the green light. I think that's what it was. Like we saw some type of light, and I think that's
Hmm.
just the camera is obviously rolling. And
Right.
I think at this point I was like, okay, well, like I didn't even think things were gonna happen right away, and I just because I wanted to take things a little bit slow. Like I can still be myself and take things a little slow, but
Yeah.
it just ended up happening. Like the boys are obviously very confident with like their dynamic, and like
Hmm.
they speak about this later on the show about like they are cool with just like bringing in a third and like having fun. And I think with me it was just like let's just see where wherever Jonathan wants to take it. And like they were
Yeah.
very respectful about it. Like we had a conversation which they didn't show about like, hey, we want to move with whatever pace we want to move at and go from there. And I think I was like, let me just bring my guard down, and then yeah, you saw whatever you saw.
Yeah, yeah. And so things got physical, but then it seemed like, you and Ashmal ended up having more of a connection
Yeah.
beyond the physical. And it took a little bit longer for all of you really to end up sort of like bringing down your walls and start actually connecting. Do you feel like that was because of the show, or was that and like everyone's there filming reality show for the first
Mhm.
time, so there's a little bit of a guard and probably a wall up
Right.
anyways, or do you feel like there was something else being more like that you were actually coming into the relationship and Rahman was maybe like pumping the brakes a little bit with you?
Yeah, I think it's so hard to say because I feel like maybe it was the dynamic of like all of us being on a reality TV show and it's our first time and like whatnot. But no, I do think that it had to do with Ramon having his guard up. Also, him having to see his boyfriend kind of like making these emotional connections with not just myself but everyone in the house. Like he
Yeah.
was very friendly and very outgoing, and that's just how the way Ashma is. Where Ramon is a little more reserved and it takes a little bit more time for him to open up, and that's why it was very hard for me to like not just also this was day two of me trying to figure things out because I was like, wait, this is day two and there's already a little drama going on. Like
Yeah.
I'm a little scared because I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. I actually, and again, when I was in the resort, I wasn't thinking like reality TV drama. Like, you know, that's usually what you see in reality TV shows, but I was really like living it. So I was like,
Right.
is this really happening? Like, am I involved in like drama that I have no idea what drama is even happening right now? I just
Yeah.
know that I'm involved in it. So, I think the more I got to know Ramon, the more I and I obviously dated both of them after the show, the more I'm realizing that it's just Ramon wants to feel included and he just wants to be feel like he's also part of the Throuple, obviously, and like
Right.
part of even the conversations that he was having with friends. And he just wants to feel, I think, ultimately included. And I think a lot of the times Ashmo and I were not taking that into consideration because like if we're having a conversation we're just letting it flow, and like that's kind of how I like to get to know people. Like we just conversate and we just go from there. And I think with Ashma and I always led to like something about our family or our bisexuality and just things like that,
Hmm.
where no one really asked Ramon, hey, like you know, how are you feeling? Or like, you know, do you want to like jump into this conversation? And I think maybe that's where I could for sure feel like I went wrong. And yeah, but ultimately, I think Ramon just needed to also participate, and I think he didn't have that that initiative of like, hey, just take lead sometimes, and like maybe like join, you know, have a conversation. I think there was times where I did take initiative and wanted to have conversations with just Ramon, but he was just like, no, like I'm not gonna have a conversation with you right now, and just things like
Yeah.
that, which it just depends on how you go about it, and I feel like he didn't go about it the right way.
Yeah, there was definitely drama with the
Yeah.
three of you, and definitely more probably between the two of them. You were
Hmm.
sort of just caught in the crosshairs and some of
Right.
the
Yeah.
issues that were going on. But then you shocked them when you decided at the swap and stay to swap, and they were
Hmm.
ready to kind of continue things moving forward with you, and you pumped the brakes. Did you do that because of the drama, or were you truly like feeling like this is not something that I could see going beyond the show?
No, truly, I was like, I don't know if I can continue beyond the show, especially just because during that time things had switched. So like for me, it was more like, wait, we were doing so bad. Like I thought I was gonna like eventually swap out, or like they were gonna swap me out,
Hmm.
and then they ended up being good. So they had already made up, and like they were doing good with each other. And as you saw in some episodes, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just really like I don't know what's happening, and like finally they're talking to me, and I'm just trying to again figure things out as we go. But I like having conversations, like I said before, where I like to talk things through and like maybe like see if we're on the same page. Where I felt like they never did that with me. It was more
Yeah.
like, hey, like we're good now. Do you still want to continue to explore this? What I want to know what happened. Like, why
Hmm.
weren't you guys good? And like, you know, why were you guys not on the same page? And like, did I do something wrong? And like, that was never really told to me. And like,
Hmm.
eventually it was, but I just felt like it was a little too late. Like, it was like, okay, well, I still don't feel like you guys are on the same page, and I don't feel good about the nights. I hate going to bed upset at someone, and we did
Hmm.
that. I
Yeah.
hate that, especially if we're sharing the same bed. Like, you should make me feel comfortable. So I feel like I was more like that day when I did like leave. I was thinking about myself and myself only, and I was like, ultimately, I want to give them their space, work things out. If I leave and you guys and we decide to like be together again, then it was meant to be. But if I leave and you guys choose someone else and you guys just run with someone, then it wasn't meant to be. And like I have to put myself first because, like I said in like some of the confessions, like I would never put up with this in the real world. So
Right.
why am I putting up with it now? You know.
Yeah. And how many days were you actually there altogether?
Um, like like in the resort, I think like a month, but I think it was
Okay.
like a month and a half or so, but it was like a little bit over a month.
Okay. So you did get some actual time with
Yeah.
them, and it wasn't just like, 3 nights in and you had to like decide to make a commitment.
Right, exactly. No, no, oh no, this was like a whole month and maybe 2 weeks of filming. Yeah, this was real. This was because a lot of my friends asked me to like, hey, like was any of this like, you know, were you told to say this? And I'm like, no, this is like real. Like, and that's why I'm like, okay, the reality TV, that's what it is. It's unscripted. So it's like whatever, however you are, that's how it's gonna be portrayed.
Yeah. And I think also people forget that even though it is for a reality TV program, and even a month is like maybe not a ton of time to sort of get to commitment status and in most real world relationships,
Hmm.
but you guys are also spending like so much time together in that
Yeah.
time. Like there, it's
Hmm.
not like people are at their day jobs or doing other things and then you're only
Right.
seeing each other, every other night or whatever. You're together every night, all day, doing these like, you know, challenges or various things that you're doing on the show, and also just spending time together. So
Hmm.
it's like 24/7. You
It
can get a
is.
lot closer, a lot faster.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, like, I think that people forget about that too. Like, yeah, there are things going around where we're getting called in to do confessions, and like maybe like in the mornings we like take our vitamins separate. That's obviously not shown. Things like that. But ultimately, that takes like what, a few seconds, and then like the confessions is like 5, 10, not 5, but like maybe like 10, 15 minutes, like,
Mhm.
or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're still living together. We're seeing each other all day. We're having food together. Like they don't show that too. Or we like I have dinner and like lunch separately, like, and like all of us together.
Mhm.
But like we can't really, and we talk, we like hang out. We can't really obviously talk about what's going on in the show because obviously they want to get it on camera. But
Right.
for the most part, we're living together 24/7. We're being filmed 24/7. So yeah, you grow very quickly. And I think a lot of people also are like, how do they even work out? Like, how do they even, I mean, and then like, I want to let them know, like, hey, like we are being recorded 24/7. We're also living together for 24/7 for a month. Things are accelerated, and like feelings are, like obviously I'm catching feelings, they're catching feelings.
Yeah.
It was very real. And like, I think although there was a lot of ups and down, I still wanted to give this like my fullest and like give them my heart and vice versa. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of which, did you feel like because you got, you decided to swap and give them some time, but
Yeah.
like you said, you thought about maybe coming back, but then you got picked again. And,
Yeah.
that caused a lot of uproar in the house. Things got really dramatic then
Mhm.
with Max and Ash bringing you into theirs. Did you feel like your heart was going to be in that when they picked you, or were you still sort of feeling for the guys? I mean,
Yeah.
we
So
know where you went, but how did you feel in that moment of getting picked again?
in that moment, well, even just stepping down for Max and Ash, I was like shaking in my boots. Like I was like nervous because I knew like this was going to like for sure, put the line as in like I'm done with the boys. I think in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I obviously care for the boys, but I think it's ready for me to move on once I saw that they chose Frank at like that event that we had, like that like
Hmm.
cocktail event. I forgot what it was, the
Yeah,
masquerade party.
right.
So once they chose Frank, for me, I mean, you saw there, I was like kind of like a little bit jealous, and I was just like, okay, well, that's it. They chose Frank, so I don't know. I'm not in the resort anymore, so I don't know what they're doing with Frank, whether they got physical with him, whether they're growing an emotional connection with him. So for me, I was like, well, if Maximo and Ash are telling me that they are interested in me, and Becca's okay with it because as you saw, Becca was like my best friend there, then why
Hmm.
am I not giving myself that opportunity to explore something with them?
Yeah,
Originally, I wanted to start this experience with a guy and a girl, and it kind of, they're here now and they're interested in me, and like I think they're beautiful, so why not? Let's explore it. So once I got Becca's approval, once I knew that I was okay within myself to do this, yeah, I was still shaking in my boots, but I still wanted to explore that and see where it can go.
yeah. Yeah, and then you had to come back into the house, which I'm sure felt awkward. I mean,
So
again,
awkward.
it's not the real world, and you normally like when you decide not to date someone anymore, you don't then see
See them
them
anymore? Yeah.
24/7 for the rest and with a new
Right.
potential, significant other or a couple that you're going to be with. And
Hmm.
so I'm imagining that even though, it definitely felt like Maximo and Ash like were there to put in some of the drama. They definitely felt like they were pushing some of that. But I have to imagine that also just like that feeling when you came back into the house was super tense and you could probably feel it throughout.
I was super tense, and I think if you didn't see it, I would let you guys know. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to not just live with the guys that my exes or the guys that I was seeing, but now I
Yeah.
have to just date a new couple and like date them while they're in the house. It was just like really. Again, you wouldn't do this in the real world. Like you're not gonna be living with your current situation while your X situation is there too. Like that doesn't happen in the real world. So yeah, it was a little intimidating too because, I think Maximo and Ash, you can tell how solid they are. Like they truly are solid and they have a good foundation. And they didn't show a lot of our good conversations where
Mhm.
like they were like, listen, like if you want to go and like get your closure with Brahman and Ashmo, you totally can. They were so respectful and so like, listen, like do what you need to do, but we still want to explore you regardless of your feelings and
Right.
like, obviously get through them, but we're here for you for that support.
Mm.
So that was just super good to hear because that also helped me kind of like resolve my feelings and how I was feeling. Because there was a lot of times there where I was kind of like battling with myself about like moving forward with Maximo and Ash and giving them a fair shot, or maybe just like ending it all because obviously like I was still thinking about the boys and they had like chosen Frank, and they were like there was times where I think I think they did show where I have those conversations. I was having conversations with Ashmo and Ramon separately about like, hey,
Hmm.
I'm still feeling the way I feel.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting anything from Ramon, which we're not surprised about. But I was getting a little bit of from Ashmo. Like I could tell from conversations that he was saying that he wasn't interested anymore, but I can tell that he was. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, there's still something here. And also in the back of my mind, I'm fighting with like I'm fighting with like myself because I'm like I don't want to put Maximo and Ash in this situation. Like it's
Right.
so unfair to them. There's other singles out there that should get chosen, and I'm here wasting their time. And I never wanted them to feel that way. So I tried my best to again feel what I was feeling, date Max and Ash, and also like wanting the boys to kind of like still think about me in some way and trying to
Mhm.
be respectful at the same time, which that just wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah. It seemed like that, what was it, like a truth or dare or Jenga game or something. It kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
made everybody's feelings come out because there was like not even just in your coupling, but in other couples too. There was some
right.
jealousy. There was like some first kisses. There was like
Mm-hmm.
it finally kind of people's walls came down. And then I think people really got to decide, oh, this is what I want and or what I don't want. And it seemed like that was the kind of turning point for a lot of people in the house. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that was an icebreaker that needed to happen for a lot of us because Max and Ash, Ramon and Ashma weren't on the same, like they weren't really like talking and stuff.
Mhm.
So I feel like that made us kind of break the ice. We're all kind of like laughing. We're seeing first kisses happen, so that needed to happen as well. Because I'm like, well, is Frank really dating them, or is Frank just there? And am I
Right.
really dating Ashma and Max more, or am I just really there too? And clearly, we were still all of us willing to explore with our new couples, and like they were obviously willing to explore with their new singles. So yeah, I think that was definitely like the moment where we're like, okay, maybe this is like maybe we should just give up on each other, as in like I'm referring to like Max,
Mhm.
Ash and myself, or like even Ramon, Ashmo, and Frank. Maybe should we just continue it? And I think that was like, okay, let me just I think after having my first kiss with Maximo and Ash, I was like, well, maybe I should just continue this and maybe like not forget about the boys. But obviously, when I saw them kiss Frank, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I do miss them, and maybe I do want to like rekindle things.
Yeah, it seemed like you definitely saw the jealousy of those
Yeah.
moments for both of you guys sort of come out in that game. But then the good news is that you guys decided to get back together, and so
Yes.
as viewers, we were like rooting for you, and and then we get to the final commitment ceremony, which you guys left in as a thruple. So
Right.
I want to talk a little bit about what happened
Hmm.
after because we got a
Yeah.
couple of words on screen to like find out
I
kind of what
know.
happens, and it was like pretty shocking. And so give us a little bit of insight into like what happened when you guys left the show.
Yeah. So we left as a throuple, Ramon, Ashmo, myself, and I was visiting them every week in Chicago. Like that's where they live. I live in New York, so I was visiting them every week. And to be honest, like what you saw on the show kind of just transition into the real world. So like they would not be on the same page at times. It was just like how you mentioned earlier, like I was just kind of like brought onto the crossfire. That's kind of what happened. And it was just a lot of times I was trying to navigate both of them. I wasn't trying to pick sides, and like every week there was always something, and I would always tell myself every week like this is fine, like they're gonna be better, they're gonna get through this. And I just think that they maybe thought going into this experience and having this experiment, finding a third was gonna help their relationship, and maybe it was gonna make them solid. And I just think it kind of it's I don't know if I can say it made it worse because they did break up. I mean, they're the only couple right now that's not together, but I think ultimately it just added more stuff to like what was already created, and I think it just didn't work out, right? But yeah, I think again, what you saw on the show, it just happens and transition into the real world, where just they weren't on the same page, and it was hard for me to just navigate the both of them.
Yeah. But then you and Rahman ended up staying together, right?
Right. So besides all the ups and downs, Ramon and I started dating. Basically, how that happened was we all went to LA for LA Pride. We hung out with Brittany and Sean, Denise, like Corey and Wilder, a bunch of people from the cast. And something had happened between Ramon and I and Ashmole. And I think Ashmole was just kind of like, I think he was feeling that throughout this experience and throughout the Throuple dating, he maybe just felt like he just wasn't as connected as he was anymore with me. Like we
Hmm.
always had that emotional connection, and like that physical connection came, it definitely was there, but that physical connection was always there with Ramon, and I think that emotional connection built with Ramon.
Hmm.
And although, like I said, there was a lot of ups and downs between them too, I was still growing my connections with both of them separately, and I think it just grew with Ramon a little bit more stronger, I guess.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean I wanted to pull myself from the throuple. Like I still wanted to continue this, and I think just because me and Ramon had a really good physical connection, Ashma noticed that in LA, and he wanted to remove himself from Ramon. Like he wanted to end the relationship there.
Hmm.
And he did. And then for me, it was like he had just told me, "Hey, I just want to let you know that I'm gonna like end things with Ramon. I just I can't keep doing this." And like obviously, it takes a lot to do that too, because they have dated for 3 4 years,
Yeah.
and there had already been other things that were adding, like their past issues. And then I guess having a third, and seeing that your boyfriend from 3 4 years is now having that physical connection with someone else, or a stronger physical connection with someone else, like it didn't sit right with him. And I completely get it. Like I don't want to sit here make it seem like I did not understand why he did what he did, but I wish he would have maybe talked to me and like, hey, like this is how I'm feeling, like and then maybe I could have dated both of them separately. I don't know.
Right.
Like it was just he decided to remove himself from Ramon, and then he just assumed right away like me and him were never going to be anything. Which again,
Hmm.
I really did like Ashmore, so for him to just think that. But again, I was like, fine, like go ahead and do that, and like I appreciate you telling me, and like I'm sorry, like I did try to have a conversation, but you can tell he was over it.
Yeah.
And then when it came to Ramon was very upset, and like he just didn't want things to just, I guess, end between him and I. And I'm like, and he knows that if Ashton removed himself, this is not a throuple anymore.
Hmm.
And in my eyes, I was like, well, you need to grieve and kind of go through this breakup before you can just like say, I want to date Jonathan. Because to me, it's like, how is that fair to me? But
Right.
we did. I still tried it out. We dated for a little bit. I would visit Chicago. It was still a little weird because he lived with Oshmo still. They still had the lease together. So it was a lot of awkwardness, but at the same time, like, hey, like I dated Oshmo too. We can be friendly and be cordial. And then he came and met Ramon came to Miami, met one of my best friends. Things were going pretty well. But then I just felt like I just still didn't think it was fair to me that he was still living with Ashmo. I don't know what's going on. Like we were all in a throuple. Like
Yeah.
now the jealousy is still coming out
Yeah.
because if it's just you and I, and you're still kind of like sleeping with Ashmore and whatnot, like that's a little. I don't think that's a throuple thing anymore. It's weird to me and it's unfair to me. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like I had to just kind of like move on, and like we just split, and they're good friends now. We didn't, me and Ramon didn't speak for like 6 7 months till the finale watch party, which we all just got together in LA and we watched the
Hmm.
finale together.
Yeah.
And we're good now. We're all friends. We're all cordial.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wondered how the dynamic shift would have impacted you guys, because especially Ramon being so emotional,
Right.
and putting up those walls. I wondered if you
Hmm.
guys, because you also, at the end of the day, you guys experienced this reality show, this kind of crazy thing that not a lot of people
Right.
get to do. So I have to imagine that you will keep in touch with them just
Yeah.
because you have done that experience together, and it's beyond just being exes.
Yeah, and I think when I did see them in the finale watch party a month and a half ago, me and Ashmo had brunch together with like friends and stuff, so that was good. So me and Ashmo were always fine, or at least that confirmed that we were fine. And then we had the finale watch party, and that's when Ramon and I finally spoke. And I did let Ramon know, like, hey, like I still want to be part of your life, and I hope that you also feel the same way, because we did date, we did have a good experience. sure, there was a lot of downs, like, but like at the same time, like, this is like our lives, and I do want to be part of it. I want you to be part of mine. I want to be part of yours. And
Yeah.
I think like we did get a little bit of like emotional and whatnot, but like at the end of the day, like I don't see a future of like dating with
Mhm.
Ramon, at the end of the, and I think he also maybe feels the same way. So I feel like as long as we are on the same page with that, we can be good friends for sure.
Right.
Just the way him and Ashmore are good friends. I want to be able to be friends with him like that. But for some reason, I'm just kind of like, I'm letting Ramon take the lead in this. Like if he wants to reach out, I'll reach out right whenever, whenever as well, and we'll just see how we move forward as friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what's next then? Have you found love since then? Are you
Um,
putting yourself out there for another throuple?
No, so I am putting myself out there for sure. I think I still prior to the show I was very monogamy, and I think I was always monogamy, and I think I still want to be monogamy and find a person and build from there. I'm not saying that I'm not open to a throuple or like and being open minded because I did go on the show being open minded.
Right.
If it happens that I meet a couple that has a strong foundation and like their communication skills are great, they're great with each other, there's no jealousy, listen, like I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But I was single for so many years prior to the show, and then they were like I only had like one boyfriend prior to that, and then they were my next like boyfriends, I guess you could say. And I've been single ever since we all ended things. So like I'm finally putting myself out there. I do want to be able to just like connect again and go on dates, and like I am dating someone right now. It's not like exclusively, like we're not like just him and I, but
Yeah.
I mean, I when I date someone, I move that way where like I don't talk to anyone else. So like I guess to me it is a little exclusively, but like all I'm saying is I'm open to actually connect with more people and like and really put myself out there because I haven't really been doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm
So
sure that the DMs will start exploding as people continue to find out that you're back on the market. And then I know that there's online people are calling for you to join the challenge on MTV.
I
But
know.
is reality TV in your future again? Do you feel? I mean, you could join the traders on Peacock, keep it in the Peacock family.
I know. Listen, I love that Peacock put me on this show, Couple to Throuple. It was a good experience. I loved it, but I am such a competitive person that I would love to do the challenge. But also, the Traders is so competitive as well. So, like,
Oh yeah,
if I can do the Traders or the challenge, I would love it. Like, it's just I'm just a competitive person in general. So
nice.
it would be really cool.
Yeah, well, we'd love to see you back on TV. It was super fun to watch the season
Thank
and follow
you.
the story. Before we go, tell folks where they can find you, where they can keep in touch with you, and continue to follow your future love story.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to follow my journey, you guys can follow me on Instagram, John Intriago. And then I might do YouTube again. I feel like I don't know, I feel like I do love vlogging and stuff. So I might do YouTube and it will probably be the same username, John Intriago. And I'm also on TikTok. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Jonathan, it was a super thrilled to have you. And
Thank you so much.
like I said, super fun show. I hope that folks continue to find it. The whole season is streaming now on Peacock, and definitely be following you and for more of your story to come.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for listening. As I said, go check out Couple to Throuple. Definitely worthwhile. And thanks for tuning in. Join me next week. More interviews to come. And of course, we'll continue to talk on the socials at CM Vetrano. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode of The Gist. And until next week, bye.
Bye.